Welcome back to the Dynasty Rewind, everybody. I'm your host, Michael Bauer. The best in the business is back in business. It's the Devy Rewind today. So, as you know, that means that I'm on vacation. So we are not doing our typical show. This is pre-recorded, but we have a fantastic crew here. I'm super excited. So I'm just going to introduce. We'll start with Matty Big Chest. He's closest to me. What's up, Matty?
Not much, man. Just got back from dinner and I'm ready to talk some Devy, man. I've been looking forward to this all day.
All right. I have two because when this happens, it means I'm not at work anymore. Loved hanging out and talking with you guys. We also got Nate Christian. Nate, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. During the intro video, I was trying to figure out why I couldn't find the video stream. I was like, guys, I got to retweet this. Why is it not showing up? And I was like, oh, wait, we're not doing this live.
I'm going to be honest with you. From my perspective, I kind of like the not going live just because I can really just focus on the show. You know, when you got live, I'm always looking at who's watching and I got comments coming in, trying to keep everything flowing. So this is kind of nice for me just from a host standpoint. Plus, I didn't really have to do a lot of prep work for this podcast because you guys are the experts in this department. So coming back for the second time, we got Ben Eby. You can find him on Twitter at the Ben Eby, and he's the host of the Elite Seekers podcast, which is part of Destination Devy. Ben, welcome back, man. It's been a while. Well, not that long, but it's good to see you again.
Man, it's great to be here. And I just thought you wanted to do it not live so that Maddie could come in here and help edit a backwards hat on you after the show. But, you know, I was wrong. So we'll have to wait for that one. But no, it's good to be back, man. I appreciate it big time.
Well, Nate doesn't have one either, so we'll have to make sure he gets one. And also welcoming for the first time to the show, make sure that I have your last name on here. We got Kevin Coleman. That is your correct last name, right, Kevin?
Yeah, that's it. You just doxed me though, but it's cool. Yeah, Kevin Coleman.
So Kevin is one of our newest writers over here at the Dynasty Rewind, and I would like to also say that he is the first verified member on Twitter of the Dynasty Rewind. Had to get that in there, Kevin. Sorry. So
hey,
happy to see you here. We've been Twitter friends for a while, but now you're part of the crew. If you want to check out Kevin's amazing content, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get in there because we like you better. But Kevin, how are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm just glad that I was able to come on first time in like a year. It's been a hard get coming on this show. You pick only the best, so I'm glad I finally made the cut.
Well, you do normally record on Tuesdays with
I do, yeah.
Devy Royale. So we record Tuesday nights. This is a Monday night, so kind of different. Yeah, looking forward to it. So let's talk some Devy. So Kevin, since it's your first time on the show, we're going to start with you. What started you in playing Devy? I'm going to make this a two-part question, and we'll let everybody answer this. So what started you in playing Devy, and why should the average player consider joining a Devy league?
Yeah, so, first thing, it's funny when I read this question, I was thinking back on it. It was like 6 years ago, and I was playing in like a dynasty league, and I was just talking to one of my league mates about college football, and they're like, hey, do you play in a Devy league? And I'm like, what the hell is a Devy league? And then they told me, and dude, I was instantly hooked. Like, you just get that bug, especially if you're a college football guy. So I started drafting. One of my first draft picks was Ezekiel Elliott, and then now he's on my Cowboys. And so it kind of just transitioned very well, and I just got hooked right away, and I started going from 1-round Devy leagues to 10-round to pipeline leagues and now C2C leagues. So it's kind of it's definitely fun and exciting, and it gets you wrapped up, and you just start playing all these Devy leagues, and now I'm in way too many leagues that my wife doesn't know about.
When you get to this point, like wives think, we're looking at their phone, that we're cheating. I guess we kind of are, but it's a little bit. Our mistress is the sleeper app. So
yeah. Or it's a freshman playing in California, and I'm watching tape on Huddle on some jacked up Huddle. Like, yeah, Ben knows what I'm talking about, and I'm like, wait, what is this? I love on Huddle now too because they can add their little their highlights themselves. And you get like lightning bolts and shit. It's hilarious.
You know what? We're gonna go over to Ben, but Ben, I was listening to your latest podcast, and you're talking about guys declaring that are still like sophomores and juniors in high school.
Yes, sir.
This is about as deep of a deep dive that I can imagine that Devy would get. If it makes you feel any better, my brother-in-law, him and his wife did just have a baby boy. I don't know if you guys want to start making him run through some cone drills or anything like that. But, so what started you in playing Devy, and why should the average player consider joining a Devy league?
Yeah, man. I mean, first I got to plug my next toddler episode coming out next week. So, shout out to the elite seekers there. But yeah, we're definitely diving deep. But man, it's a lot like Kevin. I was really into Dynasty. I used to bug Ryan McDowell all the time about who do I get? Like, what do I do? Like, just kind of like understanding that transition from regular redraft, playing back in the day Yahoo leagues like crazy with my buddies, and then finally going, okay, well, now I'm like winning all the time, it felt like. So I'm up for a new challenge. And I was on Twitter and saw what Ryan McDowell was talking about. And then I started following people and I was like, what is this Devy League? So of course I didn't jump into a regular Devy League. My first league was about probably roughly 8 years ago. And I jumped into a league that is crazy settings. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking. I'm pretty sure I wanted to quit immediately after I started, but it was like Devy taxi squads of 30 players, the Dynasty active roster, 30 players. It's super flex, but super flex times 2. So you had one starting quarterback required plus 2 extra super flex positions. So you could start 3 quarterbacks. So this is before super flex really took off as well. Then it was tight end premium, but there was a premium not only on catches, also on yards. It was best ball regular season, but you had to start lineups in the playoffs. So it was just over the top, way crazy. I ended up playing against some other analysts that I looked up to in this league and had to jump in. But after like figuring it out for whatever, a couple months or probably the whole season, it ended up being my favorite format. So I'm in multiple leagues like that now. I started some just like that. And they are like the most amazing leagues. People love it. They're crazy. There's a lot going on, but it's also best ball regular season. So that allows you to sort of get used to things. So yeah, man, it's huge. If you're a football fan and someone that doesn't just enjoy the NFL, but you enjoy watching great college football on Saturdays as well, or any other day of the week nowadays, then Devy is just so addicting and it's easy to get hooked into and want to stay. Then it just becomes, understand it really doesn't take a whole lot more research unless you're going into really deep leagues. But if you just want to get intro to Devy, it's not as overwhelming as it might seem, from the outside looking in. I think everybody adjusts if you play fantasy football to different settings and whatnot. It's just adding another piece that you probably already enjoy. So that's kind of how I started many years ago and really got hooked. Obviously, you guys know I'm a big time DK Metcalf advocate. So similar to what Kevin said with Zeke and getting him there, I was drafting DK Metcalf as a freshman at Ole Miss there and ended up working out pretty well. So I think once you have a couple of those types of draft picks work out, you're extra hooked and there's no way you're leaving.
I want to give you guys my strategy, but let's ask Maddie first. Since I don't know the answer to this, we've talked a lot about, you being obviously a Devy guy, but what got you into it and why should the average person play it?
I work with a guy who is a co-host of a podcast. His name is Jerry Sinclair at Jerry Sin DWZ. He's a great guy. He got me started in Dynasty and Devy. He just told me, oh, you like Dynasty? You should play Devy. And that was enough for me, dude. I'm a degenerate enough to just be like, okay, I'll jump in. So I like the fact that you get to call your shot literally on these players. It's a rookie draft run early. So you just call your shot on these players that you think might get drafted into the NFL. You want to take those, mitigate the risk by taking players you think will get drafted with the athletic profiles. So there's a lot that goes into Devy. It's all about strategy. So I love strategy, and it's the name of the game. So Devy has so many strategies that you can utilize, but I'm not going to go into them right now. And my first draft pick for Devy, man, DeAndre Swift.
Nate, I don't know. I feel like when you started being on the show, you weren't a Devy guy. I almost feel like we kind of forced you into it a bit because, Garrett was on the show and I just asked you, I was like, well, Garrett did Devy, do you do that? You're like, no. And then all of a sudden you're like, I really like this guy. And kind of dove into it. Is that kind of how it started for you or?
Yeah, a little bit. So like, I'm still actually like new to Dynasty Fantasy Football. I've only been playing Dynasty for about 3 years now. I've been scouting college prospects though for about 10 years. I was just doing it, for a hobby on Reddit, in high school. And so once I found Dynasty, I was like, okay, this is cool. Like I get to use the scouting process to win fantasy football. And then once I got on Twitter, I was with the Dynasty Nerds and I was hanging out with some of the writers on the Slack chat. And they were like, oh, we're going to start a C2C. And I was like, all right, that sounds cool. I'm just joining leagues right now. I'm all new to this. So I hadn't even played Devy before. I had never played Devy before. And I jumped into a C2C. and had no idea what I was doing. And I was playing against like Garrett Price, Jared Wackerly. I mean, the whole Campus to Canton crew, Shaq's out there, all these guys much smarter than me and Devy. And I got Najee Harris at the end of the first round. So that was my first Devy pick. But I'm holding my own over there in the C2C, but I definitely have learned a lot since then. And I've joined a couple of Devy leagues since then. But that's how I got into it. I kind of just actually what happened is they do the film nerds. I was watching that one night and Garrett called me out on like the film nerds show and was like, Nate, because I was in the comments, he was like, Nate, you got to join the C2C. And I was like, okay, I guess I got to join. So that's what I did.
Would you guys like to hear my Devy strategy first, or would you like to take a listener question first? You have one listener question for the show.
I want to hear your strategy, Mike.
Okay. So my strategy was going to be ask Maddie, but then he ended up joining the league because someone got removed from it. So that shot my strategy right to shit. So basically I went on Google and typed in top Devy players and saw who was available. And I would look at them and I would basically watch some film and see, do I think this guy has a shot, blah, blah, blah. And I draft from there accordingly. So you got to start somewhere, trying to kind of do as much as I can on my own. But it's good to know that I have people that I can rely on. Also, I did see if I could go to Garrett Price for advice, but Garrett's not very good at answering texts or phone calls or anything. So let's get into our one listener question of the show. This question is for Kevin. Kevin, have you realized that your newfound verification checkmark came after joining Going for Two in the Dynasty Rewind, just like your idol, the B League says?
You guys really got me to the top. I can't thank you enough. I'm gonna send you my check that I got from Twitter. It's gonna go to the brand just for you guys.
So that is from Daniel Rosier. He is our DFS and best ball writer over here at the Dynasty Rewind. Make sure you go check him out on Twitter at the B League says. He's the guy that trolls me, in case anyone's wondering, and Kevin to that extent. So good times over here at the Dynasty Rewind. The group DM is interesting, to say the least. I think we could all agree on that. So let's talk some strategies here. Do you guys have a general umbrella strategy that you use, or is it league dependent like every other dynasty or redraft league that you guys are in? Maddie, let's start with you.
So strategies, they're hard in Devy because you have to really evaluate your team. You have to be strong at evaluation. You have to know, am I competing or should I be rebuilding? Because if you're stuck in limbo, you're kind of in a purgatory. But in Devy, you can build yourself out through picks, which is a nice thing. You just got to hit them. So, I mean, the hard thing is hitting in Devy. Like, it's harder than it sounds in the later rounds. But, if you chase the right guys, you'll be fine. One of the guys I really chased last year, Nate knows his name. It's Nico Collins. And he's a guy that was not on anyone's radar. And, you got to just believe in your own takes. You can't just go off consensus. You have to watch your own tape and do the analysis yourself. In Devy strategies, my favorite type of draft strategy for the veteran draft, I like to run zero running back in Devy, because I like to get my Devy picks as running backs and bring them in with a productive struggle, which is not everyone's cup of tea because everyone likes to win right away. But, I'm a little more patient in my Devy leagues because it is a process and it is a whole strategy that you have to develop yourself. And like this Nico Collins pick that's coming on to one of my Devy teams, he's a wide receiver who's going to be developing in maybe 2 to 3 years. So there's like they develop as on taxi squad, then they have to develop in the NFL, and then they break out, and then they're on your team. So it's like there's a whole process of like 2 breakouts that they have to go through, college and pros. So you have to be pretty patient with your players. So another strategy, like trade strategies, is don't undervalue your Devy players, but also at the same time you can't overvalue them. It's so tricky. Like Devy trading's a little trickier if you're new because you can get taken advantage of. So, I mean, asking questions is the best thing you can do. Just ask questions, man. If you have questions, come to any of us.
So I hear a lot about when you're drafting your initial Devy draft, there's some classes that you stay away from. Like I know a lot of people like to go for juniors. Some people stay away from seniors overall. Ben, do you have a specific class grouping that you stay away from, or is it really you just go best talent, best overall available?
Yeah, I would say for me, I'm definitely going to go after best talent. Now, typically by this point, I am usually drafting towards the end of drafts. So by that time, what you're seeing is the highest upside guys are going to be the younger ones. Yes, you have to wait a little longer, but if you start that process now, so for example, I'm drafting incoming freshmen this year. I'm going after it, right? I'm shooting for the guys that I think have the ability to be a first round rookie pick at some point, and that's what I know I'm going to miss some, and that's okay. But I also know there's guys that are going to get drafted that are juniors in college, that are seniors in college, that are there's smaller school guys that are extremely productive. They seem athletic and all that, but they also don't make it. So to me, the hit rate is fairly, the same across the board. So to me, my strategy is always going after the highest ceiling guys. And I look at it this way. I actually kind of separate it. When I'm doing Devy leagues, I look at my active roster, my NFL roster as a dynasty team. I treat it as so. I leave it at that. Think about the game of Monopoly. I'm treating my Devy guys like that chance card that I'm hoping to hit $200 extra, right? That's how I'm treating it. I'm okay if I don't get it. I pretend like it's not coming. But if I get that bonus and I do hit a couple of those first round guys, especially in those deeper leagues, now I'm laughing all the way to the bank, right? Now I'm going to go out and I now can decide, is this the right position? I don't care about position, right? Yes, there's settings and stuff. If there's a position that strategically more valuable in your leagues due to scoring, that's a different story. But if we're talking about standard PPR, superflex, those kind of things, I don't really favor one position. I'm looking for best player available regardless of that, because if it comes down to the time where they are that first round guy on my Devy team and going to become a rookie on my team, now I decide, is that a position I need on my dynasty squad? Yes, cool, I'm going to keep them. Is this not a position? Well, guess what? I got a superstar that everybody wants because now I'm in a Devy depleted draft and I have the ability to go out and have a big time trade chip to upgrade any position. And I'm telling you, when there's teams that are rebuilding in your leagues, those trade chips, Maddie mentioned it, you do not want to devalue those at all. I don't care if they're in college. Some people will come at you, hey, I'm offering this because so-and-so is not in the NFL yet. I don't care. This guy's going to be the next Michael Irvin. Oh, okay. Well, leave me alone, man. If you don't want to pay up, that's fine. Your team is in. You have a middling team that needs a rebuild. Go ahead, keep that dude. I'll wait 2 more years while your team just continues to rot right there. I'm good with that. But if not, come pay me for the research I did to get this freshman or sophomore, this underclassman, hint the show Elite Seekers. That's where it all came from. That's been my strategy. If you really commit to this type of strategy year after year after year and you stay true to it, I'm telling you, it pays off, and it will get to the point where it's every single year. It's kind of like a productive struggle to start out with your Devy roster, right? Your taxi squad, however that works out in your league. But I'm telling you, then it gets to the point, if you're treating them separately, where you just have this machine. And that's what it is. Every Christmas, my family's feeling good about it because we got these machines that we've been building for years. And that is whatever your strategy is, I just say stick to it and go after it. So yes, I have time to go out and check film, but a lot of people don't. It's okay. Go trust people. Go read these great articles that are out there. If you don't have that time, listen to that podcast on the way to work. There's so much information. I'll tell you right now, I didn't watch a lot of film when I first started, and I was still able to figure it out within a year, but I knew who to follow, and I built up a Twitter following that really gave me a great feed of info. Even if I wasn't looking for something would randomly pop up. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a good point. Let me go check that out. That's a great way. Go find somewhere to start and then just dig in deeper. But for me, it's all about going after that high ceiling consistently. And if I don't have anything against drafting upperclassmen, just the way it works out, I usually end up getting the younger guys. But if somebody falls, that's okay. Like, go get them. It's best player available, in my opinion. Treat that as a totally separate team. That's a bonus to add to your dynasty roster that you're already running your normal dynasty strategy. And good things are going to come. I'm telling you, good things will come. It'll make an average team good and a contender. It'll make a good team a juggernaut, period.
And there's always guys that slip through the cracks too, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Joe Burrow might not have been on a traditional Devy roster somewhere. They could have gotten dropped along the way for somebody else. There's always those possibilities too. So that's kind of, those are two examples that I bring up to people and they say, well, why should I play in a Devy league? All these good guys are gone. Well, you just have to do a little bit more scouting is all. And it makes trading a little bit different. But Kevin, do you have any strategies that you would like to speak about?
Yeah, it's similar to Ben. Like what I do is I have a giant tier list. And then what I do is every year I update it, and I update like my freshman rankings, the incoming freshmen. And before my drafts, I look at like my running back tiers, which matter the most to me, because I feel like running backs, the value is just too high in running backs. Like I'm gonna look at running backs, and I look at, like, just for example, like this class, the new class coming in, you have Travion Henderson, and then you have LJ Johnson, Kamar Wheaton, who I do like. But after that, there's actually kind of a drop off. Like when you're looking at, can they be round 1 dudes? And so I always look for that. Like you do not want to draft a round 2-3 day capital guy in that first round. So I have these tiers, and I say, okay, where are these tiers at? Because like, man, like all these guys, I just value. Like to me, they're just value. Like it's not like a startup draft when you're drafting all these NFL guys. Like I'm looking for value to increase that value. And like a guy like Travion Henderson, who I already think is like a top 15 Devy asset, if you can have him, you're going to have value, trade chip, all that stuff like he was talking about. And the other thing is too, like, don't reach on frosh quarterbacks. Like people do that way too much in Devy leagues. Like they reach on these frosh quarterbacks and not even like maybe the top guys, but even I have some concerns with Caleb Williams, and I'm sure you might talk about that later. Like I saw him go 101 in a draft with Travion Henderson there. I'm taking Henderson every day at the 101. That's just, to me, value. I think it's like I forget who did it. I believe it might have been Travis May. He talked about, like, I think it was like 70% of quarterbacks don't hit that get drafted in the first round of Devy drafts. I mean, and so the numbers just don't make sense to draft quarterbacks. I won't do it. And then I don't touch a tight end if it's not tight end premium. And even if it is tight end premium, I'm not touching tight ends, because college tight ends, like, except for my boy Kate Otten, I don't know what to do with college tight end. So I'm staying away from that. But for me, it's running backs, build through there. And like Ben, he kind of nonchalantly said he's just a badass at his leagues. Like I'm in the back end too a lot. Like I found myself back there this year. So like for example, one draft that I had this year was depleted. It's a 5-year Devy. So this thing is like it's bare. And so in my first pick, I had the 11th pick. I took Carson Strong. So I took a QB that I'm pretty high on, that I'm like, okay, you know what? He could get some draft capital. I need another quarterback. And then I just went straight wide receiver. I took Quinton Johnson at the 211, Troy Franklin at the 311, and then Zay Flowers. So what I did was I looked and said, okay, where's the value at? And I try not to grab any running backs. Like the Javonte Williams of the world are really, they're far and in between after you get past the second round. But I will take a shot sometimes if I have extra draft capital. But for me, it's running backs. They matter the most. And so if you can use those are the biggest chess pieces. And like a guy like Chuba Hubbard, 2 years ago, he was one of the most valuable Devy pieces you could have. If you traded him, if you were going for a run in your NFL side, you got out of what just happened to his draft capital. So I think you just have to be smart and play it and just understand values.
I just want to add on to what you just said, Kevin. You said unless you have a lot of draft capital, and that's a big piece of my Devy strategy, is I go after the end round Devy picks. Because again, if you're okay with taking younger players, there's going to be so many players that get to that point that have a high ceiling. Yes, they're going to be high risk, but a guy like Troy Franklin could fall to those later rounds. Mm-hmm. So that's where you're able to really continue to throw more darts than you're normally used to. And people don't value those picks all the time. There's going to be someone in your league that's like, I don't really want the end because I don't want to do that extra research, or I don't want to, that's a big piece of it.
Nate, did you have any strategies that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think mine's just a continuation. This is kind of how I do every single draft, whether it's Dynasty or Devy or CAC. It's just pure value based. I don't look at positions at all, really. Especially with Devy though, because when you're making trades, like if you're going for a run in the NFL or you're trying to rebuild, when you're making trades in Devy, it's different than when you're making trades in Dynasty, because in Dynasty you got picks, and picks are unknown. And there's something exciting there. People like picks to have, variety of players that could be that position. But at the same time, some people don't like the unknown. Some people don't want to, gamble on a first round pick that might be at the end of the first round, might not be worth much. But in Devy, you have a specific name already. And there's always going to be someone who is really excited about that Devy player. So you just pick up the most valuable Devy players as they drop to you, because at some point, someone's going to want them and someone's going to be willing to pay up. And if you got to rebuild, or if you got to go for the championship in the NFL side, you can move those pieces and you know that people are going to pay up for them because they have that name. They're already excited about that player, even though they haven't played a single snap yet. And yeah, like sometimes you don't want to trade away your superstar, because I have a team, my C2C team. I already had Zeke and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor, and I just added Najee Harris to my NFL squad. I mean, my running backs are great, but my wide receivers suck. So I'm going to have to trade away Najee Harris probably because he's the most valuable at this point of those guys other than Jonathan Taylor, obviously.
Dude,
Never
JT,
trading
man.
Jonathan Taylor away. Whew. No, it's like my one share of Jonathan Taylor, man. I can't trade him away. But I think, having just the most valuable Devy players is the most important because I think it's a little bit harder to trade in Devy leagues because you got to find someone who's sold on that player. They're not just going to not take chances on random players they don't care about.
And don't sit on value though. Like you got to be very careful in Devy because this shit changes fast. Like these guys in college, it goes quick. Or Journey Brown, like you get some unfortunate guys. Like I had so many Journey Brown shares, it hurts my soul. Like and then then you're stuck because you were building towards that. But I like what Ben talked about with like, hey, I build my NFL roster. This is it. It's my dynasty roster. Because what happens if you're counting on Journey Brown to be on your NFL roster the next year when you're building your startup, it puts you in a hole. And you got to be very careful with stuff like that. But don't sit on value because if you sit on value, especially in Devy, those things change so fast. And you got to make moves. You can't just sit on your feet and say, oh, I got this.
Maddie, did you have something you want to add, I believe?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in our Devy startup this year where I took Steph's small spot after she timed out, I sat on the clock during the Alabama spring game during our rookie draft in the 6th round just to watch the Alabama wide receivers. This was just a little draft strategy thing, and I just watched the spring game, and I noticed Aggie Hall. Everyone noticed Aggie Hall in that spring game, so I got Aggie Hall in the 6th round. See, look at me. I even know how to say it, which is a funny thing. I got corrected before, and I still say Aggie. Agiye Hall, freshman incoming to Alabama. He's got a lot of potential, but he's a guy that I'm looking to sell because he's got a couple years before he even enters the league. And I got him in the 6th round, so, I mean, he's a guy that I could easily flip.
Let's talk about some players you like, and then just quickly add in some players that you maybe like one player that you're either higher or lower than consensus on, and why?
Yeah, I'm higher on I'm going to start with a higher on consensus. It's got to be Malik Willis. I love him as a quarterback, but I'm not taking him in the 1st round, similar to what Kevin said. I'm hoping he falls to the 2nd round and I can snag him up. He is a dual threat rusher, live arm. He makes these off-balance throws that are on the money, and you can't teach that. He needs to get more consistent, and he needs to show another year because he only started 1 year so far. So there's risk in investing in him, and that's why I'm higher on him than consensus. But some guys that I like, running backs, I like Eric Gray a lot from Oklahoma. He's a transfer from Tennessee. He's got a lot of potential. He's already shown out at Tennessee as well, which is the funny thing. So he's a great transfer target and a guy that I'm drafting in Devy leagues. And then for wide receivers, we just touched on him, but Agiye Hall, I got his name right this time. And then for tight ends, I'd probably say Michael Mayer, Notre Dame tight end that everyone loves, big guy. But yeah, I can't really go too much in depth in them because I don't have a scouting report in front of me. But yeah, Michael Mayer is the one tight end besides maybe Jalen Wiedemeyer that I draft in Devy leagues. So yeah, like Kevin said, don't draft tight ends.
All right, Nate, let's flip it over to you.
Yeah, so the guys that I love and for Devy, number one is Treylon Burks. I mean, I cannot get enough of that kid. He's athletic. He just dominates with Arkansas. I mean, watching filming that guy last year, I mean, just blew my mind. He's what we want Josh Gordon to be. That's what I think, So he ran a 4.4 coming into college. I don't know if I see that speed on the tape, but he's athletic. He is the dominant ex-alpha receiver that everyone looks for, everyone wants. And I am so excited to pick him up in every single dynasty draft next year. I think he's an absolute stud. Other than Treylon Burks, let's see. Who else do I really like? I actually do really like Quinton Johnson. I think he's a stud as well. TCU's kind of terrible team to watch. Even like watching the Rager film last year was rough, and Johnston is he needs some talent around him, but TCU's been recruiting pretty well. Also, kind of like Zach Evans, if he can get some more play time. So I like those guys. I like those wide receivers like that. Also, Rakeem Jarrett, go Terps. Another guy, one of the first 5-star recruits the Maryland had in a while. So always about that guy. I'm not about Kyron Williams. I'm not seeing it. He's going like top 20 in Devy drafts, C2C drafts, and I'm just not seeing the talent there and like the NFL ability, at least to like be a workhorse running back there. And another guy is actually John Metchi. I think I just saw his name pop up in our chat, but I'm not a big fan of John Metchi.
I like him. I like him for the memes.
I drafted him last year in my C2C just because, if you draft Alabama wide receivers, it's hard to go wrong. But I don't think he's at the level that like Devonta Smith was, or Jerry Jeudy, or any of the Alabama wide receivers that we've seen recently. I don't think he's at that level, and I'm not sure that I trust him to become like the next top receiver out of Alabama.
Okay, Kevin, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Matt Corral, Ole Miss quarterback. He's my QB3 in this class now. I love him. Dual threat kid from Ole Miss. If you take away 2 of his games, he didn't have that many interceptions. We won't talk about the 2 games he had all those interceptions. But he's got good arm strength, deep ball accuracy. He makes the right reads when he was within the offense. Like, I'm a big fan of Corral. I think that he could be that guy that we kind of step up. Everybody says Zach Wilson, but he could be in Lane Kiffin's offense, somebody that we're talking about as being in a down QB class, in my opinion. I think he could kind of slip himself up into that top 3-4 first-round draft capital. USC running back Chianti Ingram, I'm probably higher on him than most. I still have faith in him, even though he's a senior, but he's 6 foot 225. He shows a lot of great things if he can stay healthy. He has size, speed. I also think he's the best receiving back in college football. And I'll put my name on that. He has hands. He can do a lot of those things. If he can stay healthy at USC, I have a lot of hope for Chianti Ingram. I think that, and again, I think this class, the 2022 class for running backs, has some question marks too. So if he has a good year, we could see him. Right now, I think I have him valued as a second-round value in Superflex leagues. So if he can kind of exceed that, I think the value there would be good. The one guy that I'm out on completely is Slovis from USC. Keaton Slovis, I'm out. I've been out for a while, but there's some Slovis truthers out there that are still on him. I just don't see the arm strength, and I don't see the accuracy at times. I do like that he keeps his eyes downfield, and I do like he's a gamer. You watch him at USC, he led a lot of comebacks. He's got some intangibles I really like. I just don't think he has an NFL arm, and he's not a Konami kid. He's not going to run, and he's not very athletic. So that worries me as well. The way the NFL is going, and we're talking about fantasy with ceilings, I'm out on Slovis. So I'm out there. I think people are they've been making excuses for him the last couple of years. His arm was hurt. Well, he had to have surgery. I think the NFL is going to come around on Slovis probably not being a first-round pick.
Kevin, are you sitting in the corner while you're doing this podcast out of curiosity?
Kind of. I have a lot of kids, and I don't have a lot of office space yet. I'm upgrading soon, hopefully. Me and my wife put an offer on a house, so we'll see if I get an office or not.
It's almost like you're grounded while you're doing the podcast.
Yeah, well, if my wife had anything to say about it, I would be grounded, Mike. So just letting you know. I'm supposed to do podcasts on one night. I made an exception tonight for this show, so just letting you know that you're special.
Well, I'm limited to 2 during the week, but I stretched it to 4 this week. So
okay.
That's got vacation coming up. So just I've been trying to put things off, and now it's like, what? I've been promising people for a while that I'd hop on, so it's time for me to own up. But Ben, why don't you go ahead and answer this question for us?
So some guys that I'm higher on. I won't touch on Ajay Hall anymore, but that's my guy that I'm going after, period. And I am not selling because I truly believe he is going to be an elite receiver, and I'm good with waiting on that. If you get a chance to check out some interviews and reasons of why he showed up and went to Alabama, it's pretty special. He wants to be a Julio type guy. He really wants to step up. And for me, the spring game was just confidence that he has that athletic ability to already make it happen. And he matched up really, really well against the Alabama defenders. Just amazing against the sideline. He could beat you deep. He could beat you in the contested area. I think Nick Saban, the way he talks about him already, you know that this is going to be a dude. And a dude coming from Alabama means a lot from those wide receiver ranks. So I'm definitely extremely happy to get him. Now, some other guys as far as consensus goes, Eric Gilbert, man, this is a guy that's been on a roller coaster value-wise. And I know Kevin talked about no tight ends, but this dude is not a tight end right now. So I guess we can make an exception, right? He's officially transferred over to Georgia, coming from LSU after a really successful freshman season. And this guy is a freak. If you loved Pitts, if you loved Kyle Pitts, Eric Gilbert's ceiling is that or higher. He just got the mass to go along with him. There's a reason he's going to play wide receiver. You got Pickens hurt. I think it's going to be really special. I don't care what he plays or what he's listed at for college. He's going to be a tight end at the next level. That's what's going to happen. But he's going to be a tight end that's just lined up all over the field. And that's what you want. Kyle Pitts, same thing. He's going to be lined up. He's not going to be out there to block. I don't care about that. We want this guy to run up the seams, go get the ball, go get some touchdowns. Like, these guys are going to be special, and they're really the type of players that really change a position overall and help evolve a position and help evolve these offenses. So I'm excited to see him at Georgia. I think it's a great opportunity with Pickens being out. They're going to need an extra guy in the red zone. You got obviously Jermaine Burton there, who I'm really high on, just a great guy. And then Darnell Washington's another guy that people either love him or absolutely hate him, but 6'8" tight end that moves extremely well. You got to see at the end of the year just some great catches. I'm excited. I think there's a reason why Eric Gilbert is listed at wide receiver, because they truly believe in Darnell Washington. And these guys with Burton were part of the defensive back assassins coming out of high school. So that was their little group name. And these guys were just tearing people up in tournaments. So it's really exciting to see them back together. You're going to have JT Daniels there slinging the rock. Now, JT Daniels could have a huge year, but he's probably a guy I'm staying away from because he doesn't match up to that ceiling that I'm looking for, because he doesn't have that little bit of running ability. And I don't see him being so elite from that arm talent and just overall decision-making that he's going to be able to make up for that to become an elite quarterback one at the NFL level. So I'm definitely more down on a lot of these second-tier quarterbacks. Kevin mentioned how it's going to be a down year for quarterbacks, and I'm with it. I'll take a chance on a guy like Malik Willis over that. Yes, is it more high risk, high reward? Sure. It is, and he definitely needs to develop as far as throwing. But if he figures it out to become an average or a little bit better than average thrower and decision maker, you throw the running ability there, then you have a lot higher ceiling. So if I was going to take a chance on one of those guys, it'd be a guy like Malik Willis. Damon Demas is a guy that coming out, everybody wanted this. This was the dude where, going back to what Maddie said, I get a guy and I'm going to sell him. Well, Demas, that probably would have worked out pretty well for you if you did that, because you type in his name on YouTube and you're going to see like a dude that looks like he's Batman flying through the air, flipping upside down, just incredible 42-inch vertical with 4.4 speed, 6 foot, 380 pounds. Like, there is not, he's a DK level athlete from an athletic standpoint. Now, route running and all that other stuff off the field, had some issues, didn't play his senior year. So, he put up over 1,500 yards, 23 touchdowns as a junior in high school, ends up at Texas A&M, doesn't play a lot. Well, guess what? He was a freshman, got things going on. You got to get in and earn your way. It's a good college football team. So you're now hearing Coach, I actually just put a tweet out today, but Coach Jimbo Fisher talking about Demas and what he was able to do and saying he was one of the most impressive guys at the wide receiver position this spring before getting hurt. Okay, so this is a guy that is ramping up. They talked about him working on his route running, his footwork, and we already know what he is as an athlete. And this guy had to take a whole year off of football. Of course, he wasn't going to see the field that much as a true freshman. So I'm really, really excited for a guy like that. And he has fallen so far behind a lot of these like incoming freshman receivers because everybody's so worried that becomes an extreme value to me and the exact type of guy I'm looking for. Justin Ross falls into that same category for me, a guy that was top of the line. We already saw that, though. The difference is for him. We already saw that at Clemson, and then he had this major injury, and it seemed like his football career is done. But now you're hearing about him moving to the slot for Clemson, coming back healthy. So that's a guy that is falling way too low in drafts. Is there risk? Absolutely. But we're talking about Devy players. Every single Devy player you take, there's going to be some form of risk. So those are some of the guys that I'm just really, really high on. And they're all guys that have that tier one talent, ability, that ceiling. And that's what I go after. So I just look for those fluctuations or wait for the dip, right? As far as value goes, and see where you can get in if you believe in a guy.
So I actually want to you actually segue kind of perfectly into the next topic here. You're talking about JT Daniels. Is he a guy that you would take in a C2C league, but not a traditional Devy league?
Yeah, I think so. I think everything lines up for him to have a much better chance to be a lot more productive from a campus to Canton standpoint. He should have a great college year. He's got a ton of weapons. You might question their type of offense a little bit. Are they going to run too much? But I think you don't bring in those type of receivers and tight ends unless you plan on chucking it around a little bit. So yes, absolutely, I'd be higher on him in a C2C format versus what I think he'll be at the NFL level.
So the reason I had asked that question is Ben and I had talked about a player before, and he, that was his different player, and his answer was I would take him in C2C and not a traditional Devy league. So basically, what I'm hearing here, and to answer my own question, is you take a guy like that in a C2C league because you could play him right now and get points in the college format, but you don't think he's going to be as good of a NFL player as he was a collegiate player. And we could use an example like Jake Fromm. Did not end up being really anything in the NFL. Like he lost his job to Mitchell Trubisky pretty much. And there's a lot of other guys that we could say the same thing for that just didn't pan out, like JJ Arcega-Whiteside. There's guys out there. So that kind of answers that. Whenever
Jamon Osborne.
Jamon Osborne, hey, isn't he's still with the Eagles, right?
Hey, he's going to be the wide receiver 2 on the team this year.
Yeah, they're actually saying, Pork, I know you're listening to this, but apparently John Hightower is a cut candidate. So
that's sad.
Pour one out for our homie John Hightower. So we will get to he could have fucking beat the Ravens if he would just catch the ball. Oh, you're a wide receiver. You can't catch the ball. That's the one thing you did. So let's move on to our last topic. This was actually, I believe Maddie brought this up in the group today and talking about some transfers. So if you guys want to just touch on some of the bigger transfers, and hey, how do you guys think that the new transfer rule, if at all, will affect your Devy leagues? Maddie, let's start with you. Maddie, I think you were muted, my man. You are. There you go.
All right. Well, my top transfer is Eric Gray from Tennessee to Oklahoma. I talked about him earlier. I like running backs a lot in Devy. They hold a lot of value, and Eric Gray is one of those guys who's older, so he's already developed his skill set, and he showed at Tennessee carrying the offense through terrible quarterback play. Can't really ask him to do much more than that. He's a good receiver at a big. He's a good size too, which is the big thing. Really good frame on that on Eric Gray. And really impressed with his cutting too. He's got good cuts on tape. So Eric Gray's a guy that I'm looking to get because he's playing the Big 12. He's going up against some really chalk defenses, and he's going to run on them. So you got Rattler throwing the ball and Gray running the ball. So I like that combination for that offense. And they'll lose a game, but it'll just be some random game. Otherwise, they're going to dominate the Big 12. And I'm not going to touch on all the transfers because I don't want to take them off, but Eric Gray's the transfer that I'm really excited about. And the transfer rules, I'm not worried about them. I think it's good. I think that players should be able to transfer and play when they want. I think that sitting out a year was dumb. I think it just is. I think that it just took away from the players, and I'm happy that these players are actually able to get money too now with their names. So this is another thing that I'm excited about for college players. So a lot of things happening for college players that are good.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that too. I always thought the sitting out, because you might commit to a coach and then he gets fired or leaves for another opportunity, and now you're stuck on a team that you don't want to be on because the system's bad or you just don't fit in with the new culture there. And yeah, you know what? If an 18-year-old kid fresh out of high school that doesn't have a job can go be a YouTuber or start their own business, a lemonade stand or whatever, and make money off it, then you, as an adult and a citizen of this country, you should be able to make money off of your likeness and your image. It's not fair that you couldn't. But Kevin, let's kick it down to you. Nate, I'm going to let you bring up the rear on this one because you are the head of our Devy department. Kevin, your thoughts on some of these transfers, and do you think it affects your Devy leagues at all?
I'll start with, does it affect your Devy leagues? Not really, not so much, not as Devy leagues, unless you're like a pipeline league. So I'm in a pipeline league that I started that I really wanted to do, and you get the player from that school, And it's been fun because people that have been drafting all these dudes, as soon as they start to transfer, if they go to a different school that somebody already has, we put them in the draft. We actually put them in the startup draft. Then they get that guy. So Eric Gilbert went from one school to, Florida for like 5 weeks. And then he went to Georgia. So like everybody in the chat was like, you freaking got my Eric Gilbert share. Like, so that has been kind of fun, like in terms of pipeline leagues, if you're in those. But as far as the rule goes, I don't think it affects you too much. I think it actually might help because some guys might be able to leave and get a little bit more better exposure, and then they're actually going to produce. So you're going to be looking like Ohio State. They're going to have somebody transfer at some point in that quarterback room or wide receiver room at some point. But two guys that I like, just to kind of keep it quick, that I think I wanted to kind of go under the radar a little bit, that it'll be interesting to see, Wan'Dale Robinson, junior, wide receiver, 5'11", 185. He transferred from Nebraska, and he's going to Kentucky. It'll be interesting to see what he can do there in that offense. He's a dual threat guy. He's going to run and pass, catch. He had 340 yards rushing last year with 453 yards receiving. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife, and he's pretty big. Like, people think of Rondale as being small, but he's 185 pounds, so he's legit there. And then the other guy is Charleston Rambo. He transferred, and I think that – oh, my bad, Nate. Did I steal yours? He transferred from Oklahoma to Miami, and I think Miami, he's going to – if King is healthy – and they're able to have that connection. Rambo could be a guy that we're talking about as a junior. He's 6'1", 185. He could be that leading receiver on Miami's team, and his draft capital is going to go up. So those two guys I'm interested to see, because where are they going to be in this receiving class, especially this junior class, and can they kind of vault up the draft board?
Okay. Maddie, did you want to touch on, you said quarterbacks in the chat. Did you want to touch on that?
I think that transferring helps quarterbacks the most. Quarterbacks are able to sit behind these guys, and if they don't go pro, then transfer out and be able to start. So that's a huge thing, I think, for quarterbacks, because it doesn't really matter what school you go as a quarterback as long as you are able to perform and have the tools. We saw with Zach Wilson playing at BYU. Joe Burrow transferred to LSU from Ohio State, for example. So even Russell Wilson, a grad transfer from NC State to Wisconsin. There's a lot of players who need new situations to shine, and that's, I think, very important for the quarterback room, because quarterbacks are the team. It all flows through the quarterback on offense. So I think that this really helps quarterbacks the most out of any position.
All right, Ben, what do you got for us as far as transfer-wise?
I'm not going to talk about Eric Gilbert, but that would be my number one biggest transfer as far as impact, I think, coming. And we'll see that early on and very often for Georgia. But I want to talk about Ty Chandler. I think him moving from Tennessee, a little bit older running back, but this is a guy that was really, really high on people's boards coming out of high school and moving over to North Carolina. Obviously, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, moving on to the NFL. Both are guys that are probably going to see a lot of touches this year. Whether you're in on Michael Carter or you're not, I think he has a chance to become the starter early on in the season for the Jets, if not by mid-season. So I think he'll definitely get a crack at that. But Ty Chandler –
interrupt. LaMichael Pirine, running back one.
He died. Yeah.
Don't do that,
man. Yeah, it happened right before the show. Sorry about that.
Nate,
but
Sean,
back to
bro,
Ty
sorry.
Chandler. Yeah, man, I think stepping in, he kind of can do it all. So he's a home run hitting type guy. So he's going to go in and play with the same quarterback that made Javonte and Michael Carter look really good in that offense. So I think there's an opportunity for him to be a guy that's probably not on really anybody's board for the most part right now. If you were going to be taking him in rookie drafts right now, he's a guy we're probably talking about more like the 4th round. But coming in there, having a big year, he could be that like early 2nd round rookie pick for you if he comes in and just blows it up for North Carolina in a potent offense. So we'll see what happens, but that's one that I'm really, really paying attention to.
Okay. And you don't think that the transferring, that's not going to affect anything?
I'm not worried about that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Nate, bring it home for me.
Yeah. So two kind of under the radar transfer guys. One is Zach Charbonnet from Michigan. Had a really good freshman year, 11 touchdowns for Michigan. Looked pretty good. He's a big physical guy. Looks like he's NFL ready already size-wise. And then last year, for some God knows why reason, he only had 19 rushing attempts after being one of the better running backs on the team as a freshman. Don't understand it, but he got tired of Harbaugh and went and transferred to UCLA. Now he's playing for Chip Kelly, and we'll get to see what that looks like. I don't really know how the fit is there, but I'm excited to see how it works out. I think there's a lot of room for him to raise his stock from where it's dropped to. He's kind of forgotten about now. And then another guy that I think could be an exciting transfer is actually Grant Gunnell from Arizona to Memphis, because Memphis is a fun team to watch. Memphis is a great offense. They produce yards, produce touchdowns. And I think Grant Gunnell, I like him more than Brady White. So I think he's an upgraded quarterback. I think he's a guy that he's 6'6", 220 pounds. So he's got some NFL size. I'm interested to see if he actually looks good there, because he's a big wild card, and everyone loves Memphis now. Everyone loves Memphis because of Antonio Gibson, Tony Pollard, Gainwell. We love Memphis. Yeah, Henderson. Yeah, exactly. So let's see what Gunnell can do, transferring out of Arizona. So I'm interested to watch those two guys. I'm not sure if either one are going to be great NFL prospects when it's all said and done, but I think their stock's pretty low right now, and they have some upside.
You're not worried about how the transfer is going to affect your Devy leagues at all?
Not really. I barely know what I'm doing anyway, so I don't care about the transfers, man.
So listen, speaking of barely knowing what you're doing, do you guys want to hear my first ever Devy league? You want to hear how my team shook out?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, Maddie and Nate, they might be a little bit more familiar. So my first pick was George Pickens, wide receiver from Georgia. My second pick was Kendall Milton, running back from Georgia. Apparently, I'm a Georgia Bulldogs fan. Third one was Will Shipley. He's a running back from Clemson. I know you guys know who these guys are, but I'm saying, what they do and where they're from. For the people that do not know, let's see, scrolling down. Apparently, I traded Maddie a bunch of picks in this middle round here, and I know Maddie
got
was
a Jai Hall, so thank you.
Yeah, I know Maddie was talking about trying to take advantage of people that don't exactly know what they're doing. I feel like that might have been targeted at me a little bit, but that's okay. So then I got Drake May, quarterback from North Carolina. In the eighth round, this is the pick I'm actually the most proud of, because I remembered him from watching film on Zach Wilson, and I think Dax Milne went to BYU as well. That's Tyler Algier, running back from BYU. I just think he's a really, really natural and smooth receiver out of the backfield. He kind of reminds me like a little bit of a James White, just the way he's such a natural catcher of the football. And then I didn't highlight this. We got Donovan Edwards, running back from Michigan. And I think, Ben, you talked about this guy, running back from Texas A&M, Devin.
Chain.
Yeah. Did you talk about him, or was that the guy?
I talked about him before, but I don't know if we had a conversation about him.
Well, I just remember hearing you say his name. I couldn't remember where it was. So that's
on one of the Elite Series.
I have to say your best pick might have been Drake May there. Because you texted me who to take, and I told you Drake May. And I'm in the league with you.
So a lot of times, and the thing that sucks is I'll be on the clock when I'm at work. Mm-hmm. And it's, a league that I'm not super familiar with, this type of things. So I don't have a ton of time. I don't sit behind a computer, so I can't make it look like, yeah, boss, I'm working. I'm standing at my toolbox. My boss is right there. He works right next to me. So it's a little hard for me. And that's when I think I just hit Maddie up dude, who do I take here? Even though if I don't know what I'm doing, I hate to be the guy that hogs up a lot of clock. I just hate to be that guy. You know what I mean? I like to keep the draft moving along. So
it was really funny. I sniped Mike in that draft, and I know that Mike only knows a couple players. So I was picking right before him, and I picked Jahan Dotson. And the fact that he's a Penn State fan made it even funnier.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact, Jahan Dotson. So I'm kind of I'm in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. Saquon Barkley lived across the bridge from me in Copley. And Jahan Dotson lives 20 minutes away from me in Nazareth. Well, his parents do. So it's kind of cool. The area of the country that I'm in is not really known for churning out NFL talent. And we got Saquon Barkley, one of the best running backs in the NFL. And Jahan Dotson, a guy that I like a lot too. So and he plays for my favorite collegiate football team. But so that's my team. And guys, thank you again for coming and hanging out. Everybody that listens to the show, I'm really hoping that you dug the Devy show here. I think I'm going to start kind of getting into Devy a little bit more. And we're going to be bringing you guys a little bit more Devy stuff in the season, kind of trying to think of how we want to do the in-season show. I was talking to Nate the other day. We're going to our Devy segment's going to be expanded. Shows are probably actually going to be a little shorter in season. It's going to help you guys. If you have any questions about trades you want on the show, hit us up, anything like that. But we're going to roll out of here. So, Kevin, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter?
Yeah, you can find me at DuBois_22, and I have this white thing next to my name. It's pretty. You can just see it there, and you can just click that follow button.
Is it the blue check mark?
Yeah.
Is
just kidding.
Is DuBois because you're a Cowboys fan?
So I've told the story a couple of times, but my grandpa was a huge Cowboys fan. He got killed in a drunk driving accident when I was like 8, and so I became a huge Cowboy fan because of him, because of kind of his memory. And Emmitt Smith was his favorite athlete, and so it's kind of homage to him last year, because I didn't have a Twitter account till like last June or March, or it was somewhere in there, and so I didn't even know what to put, and I was like, you know what, I'll just do something for my grandpa. So it's staying. I'm not changing it. So I know it kind of sounds corny, but it's something for me and my family.
No, it's just hard now. I can't hate you for being a Cowboys fan.
Sorry.
No, that's actually pretty cool, man. That's awesome. So hit Kevin up. He's doing a lot of great stuff for us, and he's a great guy to talk to, and is glad to finally have you on the show. And Ben, thank you for coming back. Tell everybody tell everyone about your podcast and where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at the Ben Eby, that's spelled EBY, and I run the Elite Seekers show via Destination Devy's podcast network. So search for Destination Devy, and my shows come out every single Friday. Appreciate you, Nate, rocking that shirt there. Yeah, for me, it's all about the young guys. I'm talking about all the college underclassmen as well as the high school guys. So it's if you're looking to get help on deep leagues and trying to get a head start on guys, and your strategy matches up as far as going for high ceiling players, come check out Elite Seekers, because that's definitely what we're all about there.
Does Elite Seekers have its own Twitter? I meant to look, and I don't know. You guys?
It does. I have the name locked down. I don't use the Twitter. It's no real need to right now. I think, I think we're rocking with at the Ben Eby for now. But I think there's some expansion plans in the works for Elite Seekers. So stay tuned. Maybe some other sports come in.
Awesome. That's great, man. And, I'm going to be there every step of the way. And someone who's always here every step of the way for us, Matty Big Chest, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, when I'm not selling a Jai Hall, you can find me on Twitter at Matty Big Chest, or on Instagram at Matty Big Chest. Hit me up for graphics if you need them. And just want to add a disclaimer. Only selling a Jai Hall in the team. We're on the team that Steph drafted. So do not sell a Jai Hall in Devy.
And if you are watching this YouTube video right now, or wherever Bob happened to put it, Matty made these awesome graphics. And as you can see, I was kind of changing the overlay while we were moving on throughout the show. So this is something he could do for you. He can make you awesome backgrounds for your MFL leagues. Pricing is great. Turnaround time is fantastic. And you know what? Matty's just a cool guy to talk to, too, on top of that. Very knowledgeable about everything aside from graphics. Great at Dynasty, great at Devy. Matty, glad you're a part of the team. And now the head of our Devy department, lead us out. Where can we find you?
I am the head of the Devy department by default, so I'm just hanging on to that title. You can find me at Nate NFL, and I implore anyone to try Devy out, even if it's like a 3-player, like 3-round, 5-round Devy. It doesn't have to be a C2C. It's fun. It gets you. If you play in one Devy league, it helps you out in all your dynasty leagues because you already know about the next class coming up. So you can't really go wrong at least playing in one Devy league. And there's so much out there to help you. We have this show. We have these guys here that they do great work. There's also so much else great work on Twitter. I mean, you throw a rock and you're going to hit a Devy player. So it's definitely worth getting into at least one league.
Agree, but don't throw rocks. It's not recommended. All I want to say to you guys is make sure you DM Bob Van Duzer at BobVan_IDP and ask him to rank his top 5 seedless fruits. But until next time, everybody, if you are so inclined, you can follow me on Twitter at TheEmbauer85. I'm sorry, at Rewind CEO. I keep forgetting I changed that. I would much rather you follow the show at Dynasty Rewind. Please check us out, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Hope you enjoyed our Devy episode. I'll see you back next week, fresh from vacation. But until next time, everyone, be kind. Please rewind. Thank you for watching. And as always, thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Dynasty Rewind. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. And as always, be kind. Please rewind.